Yeah.
Well, there is.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Farmington School Board meeting. It is September 21st. It's at 6:30. We all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have public participation. As my usual, I'll be leaving it open throughout the meeting. If somebody has a question or concern, they can please let us know. We have a dial-up number which is listed, I think, on our site or on this meeting. And next we have minutes. So meeting minutes of August 24th, public session. Does anyone have any discussion or motion?
Make a motion to accept public session minutes of August 24th, as well as non-public session 1, 2, and 3, as written.
I'll second for discussion. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Such unanimous. Next, we have some updates, so I'll turn it over to staff. First is on the construction.
We met with Structure Town on Friday, both Ruth Ellen, myself, Larry. I went to all the schools and kind of went soup to nuts what we need to do. Obviously, Henry Wilson's the most dramatic of them all, but I think we got to a pretty good understanding of what's involved, what we needed from staff as far as moving around. I did reach out to them today and let them know that we are promoting that school, so if they can get in even a little earlier, probably be helpful. But that was this afternoon, never heard anything back, so.
When was their anticipated start date before?
Right around when we come back, October 1st.
Okay.
That was their goal, so. But we did talk about, where stuff was gonna go, how things were gonna move, what order is gonna be done, and I think it was not as, because it wasn't as, what am I looking for? Controversial?
But I don't think it was as
Inconvenient.
involved as they thought
Yeah.
it might be as far as the shift around, because
Yeah.
some of the shifts have already taken place, so, and some of the others will be en route.
Right. And then we went to the other schools, and those are real small, windows
Right.
type of stuff, so the other schools are not an issue at all.
Okay. Any questions on that? Next, the roof update.
I have the contract for both schools here. My question to you was whether you want us to sign them or you to sign them. They're ready to go. They're going to start.
Yeah, I don't know typically how it's done. I mean, I don't have a problem signing it. If you can
know if you
attest
want-
everything's there, I'll sign it if the board wants me to. I don't.
Jeff signed off. Jeff was like, these are fine. We'll
Okay.
sign off on them.
In the past, it's typically been delegated to me, but it's at the board's pleasure, so again, wanted to make sure.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the superintendent or designee to execute the roofing contract as written.
I'll second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Next, we have technology update. We have something.
So we have been able to get Chromebooks out to all sixth graders. Right now, we are in the process of deploying Chromebooks to those fourth and fifth graders who are in need of those to be able to do remote learning beginning tomorrow. We will have hopefully an update within the next few days of an arrival time on our next shipment. We've been checking in, and right now they don't have a firm date for us, so it hasn't moved further back, but it hasn't come any closer either at this
Now,
point.
Are we going to have a shortage for those fourth and fifth graders?
Right now, we have been able to meet the needs of all who've reached out and said they needed Chromebooks.
What is our reserve numbers in computers? So if all of a sudden 7 and 8 go down, or Valley View goes down, what do we have in stock to take care of those needs of people that are going to need them?
Well, we have Henry Wilson covered, because 6, 7, and 8 have them 1-to-1.
Okay.
4 and 5, we're going to be able to cover all those who've requested.
Yep.
For Valley View,
Is it iPads that we have for those lower grades, or what do we?
we have iPads for K and some of 1. It's 2 and 3 that we're going to be very short on right now. Jen, do you have numbers where we are?
So we have iPads for all of preschool, all of kindergarten, and almost all of on. We're just trying to get kind of 2 more down. And then for 2 and 3, I just have a very small set that's sitting on campus at this time. I reached out again to the vendor and said, listen, as soon as you have word, please let me know. And they said, we're listening. And I said, and as soon as you have word, if another brand comes in faster, because they're thinking one might, let us know so we can swap over as long as we stay in that price range. And they said, not a problem, we will let you know.
Because you had authorized us up to a
Yep.
certain amount over, so we are looking at that.
But we were able to cover all the families in need that came out tonight. And I have, like I said, a small set left over just for the families in need if we needed to for grades 2 and 3.
What's that
Very
number?
small set, but
What's that number in the 2 grades?
a number.
Yeah, well, how many,
How many devices or how many are needed?
Students.
how many devices did we put out?
Have we,
Put out for the ones in need?
Yeah, so
today, I believe that was, how many do we, all
under 10.
right, today for grades 4 and 5, we gave out just under 10?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, it came in a little garbled. No, I think we gave out, I'll have to check with Matt because we had some that showed up right as I was getting ready to leave, but I know it was 31 that came that I knew of. And Matt, can you jump in? Did anyone else show up beyond what was on our list today? Because I know we had a couple that showed up that weren't on our list.
Yeah, we had a couple, but I believe we were, I'm just looking right now. I have 39.
Okay, so we did have some additional.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was able to set up so we'd have some additional for them, so that was good. And then I found I had ordered some cords because there was a set that was in a cart where they didn't have all the cords originally in their cart. They've had it for a long time. I ordered the cords, they came in today, so we're good with a small set. But it's not enough to cover all of them.
So is the 39 what was distributed today, or were the devices distributed yesterday?
Yesterday's devices were to 6th grade,
Okay.
and they're fully 1-to-1 for 4th and 5th. Those were for those students who had need.
Okay, thank you.
So in classes 2 through 3, how many are we short? Approximately.
Well, like I said, I only have 10 left.
We haven't put out to grades 2 and 3 yet to see exactly how many we're going to need. At this point, if we were to have to go remote with 2, 3, we would probably be paper until the next group comes in. Because 10 aren't going to do the next 2 grade levels.
What is the approximate number of students in 2 and 3 total?
Yep, I'll pull it for you right now.
But there's a difference between the number of students in 2 and 3 and what we're going to need for an emergency remote.
Correct.
Because some kids have computers at home.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I'd like to see ahead of time what that number is,
Certainly.
so that if something does happen, we're
Yep,
prepared.
we'll know what we need. Yep.
I think Blake popped
Little bit.
in and I didn't hear what he said.
Same thing. Some students have computers at
Okay.
home. Go ahead, Ruth Allen.
Okay, so while Jen grabs that number, we, other than that, are still working to make sure that we've got everybody up and ready to go. Passed out a lot of passwords and login connections for kids yesterday and today, and I think we're in good shape for Henry Wilson. We will have those others hopefully soon, and as soon as I have a number or a delivery date on those, I will certainly send that to the board. Like I said, we were originally told 1st of October or so. And they said they would know probably 5 days out at what point they would be shipped. So 1st of October is coming up pretty quickly.
Okay, next, transportation.
Transportation, we have our bus that we are looking to make a decision on right now. DePrizios has pretty much indicated, well, they don't have a crystal ball.
Why couldn't they address the question as I requested, which is...
I think part of the
I
issue...
get this response that they can't comment on life expectancy. That wasn't my question. My
Right.
question was to assess it to see if they saw any major repair bills, such as tires, other things.
Those pieces did not come up as an issue. Part of the other part is fleets of buses regionally and probably nationally have been having issues because they sat for so long. And they're having breakdowns in areas that are unexpected because they're not handling having sat. So we are cautiously optimistic that we can do these repairs and be able to have something that's going to be workable. The mileage on this vehicle is around 173,000. We've been able to get roughly 250,000 out of most of the vehicles.
Yep.
So we're hoping that we would get that much more out of it. I don't know that that's going to be the case. But certainly $6,000 in repair is less than an $80,000 bus at this point. And we've gotten 13 to 15 years out of most vehicles. This is a 10-year-old vehicle.
So you're looking for us to motion to authorize the expenditure?
That is what I am looking for.
I'll make a motion to authorize the expenditure up to, was it $6,000 repair for the bus at DePrizios?
I'll second.
Second by Stan. Any discussion?
How much is in that line?
There's 5,000 currently
For that bus?
for that bus.
So-
It's not, so
So where's the 1,000 going to come from?
we're going to look at where some of the other repairs are, and because we haven't had as much that the buses and vans were run over the summer,
Yeah.
we may have some savings there too.
Can we
Because
get
we
a-
haven't been spending the fuel.
Can we get a tally before the next meeting of what is left in the I guess, bus repairs?
The whole repair,
The whole
Tom,
repairs,
absolutely.
all of
Yep.
Okay.
We're well within what we have right now, though.
So it's really not it's not like it's not available in that line item. It wasn't slated for that
It wasn't
box.
slated for that particular bus, but it's within transportation right now easily.
Okay.
Was there a vote? All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to building logistics next.
Our desk shields were due in district today. We got an email midday that said they will be arriving tomorrow because they were down a driver. And I don't have a time yet, but typically they let me know in the morning, either on the way or the time, so.
Now, based upon this purchase of 200 shields, what do you feel your reserve will be?
I'm thinking my reserve would probably be around 30 or so.
Okay.
What's our life expectancy? I mean, are they going to do us the school year or 6 months till hopefully there's a vaccination?
Have we had any breakage or damage? Have we had to replace any yet?
5 so far.
Dropping and breaking?
Not drop. Accidents happening.
Okay.
That's
So-
of the thinner ones?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I think that's going to need to be, just stay on top of it. If you need some additional ones, you may need to put in a small order.
Okay,
Because if you only have 30 and you're broken 5, I mean, you may
that's
go
gonna
through-
get me through maybe 6 weeks.
Well, depends. I think once
Yeah,
people
yeah.
get accustomed to it, you may not have as much breakage or damage.
I know we have some teachers that have put a small sticker on the corners too, so that it reminds kids that they're there because they are fairly clear, which is a good thing, but also can be a problem. And then the updated numbers that you had asked for are in the folder.
Yeah.
You'd asked for the number of students currently in the classroom.
Right, but the one thing that didn't see was the total number of kids, so the total number of that we could see. I mean, you got the, so, I thought I printed that, oh, here it is. So you have, like, if you take the first one, you have
So for
grade one,
that,
number to max is 1.
for Valley View,
Yeah.
for each grade level, one classroom is fully remote and the others are all fully in person. So if you look at grade 1, Mrs. Pelkey has the remote
Right.
class, the others are all in person. And so if it says there's 14 students in the room, the number to max would be one more, so adding one more to 15, that's,
So
And how
Valley-
many total students are in that class, though?
so for Valley View, there are 14 students in Mrs. Huff's class. Do you mean, when you say
okay.
class, do you mean for grade level?
So all the remote students are in,
Mrs. Pelkey's
Okay.
class, Ms. O'Leary's class, and Mr. Hall's class.
so in Valley View, then we have no capacity problems?
You have for Ms. Freddo to add one more student in person, that would put her at max. For Ms. Huff, that would take her to max. The others have some space. If we had additional students come in who are in person, we would have space to add students there.
So what's the plan if we get to capacity, as far as our social distancing map? Are we going to say we don't have physical room for you, you're going to have to be remote, or what is that?
Well, and that's, I think, something that we need to look at as far as policy, because at Valley View, it may not be as much of an issue. We have more space. For some of the classes at Henry Wilson, we're very tight. And
But
we
when
wanna-
when you say we have space at Valley View, meaning move one class to a different classroom?
meaning that if we, for instance, if you look at second grade, number to max, you have 4, 5, 6, 7. So I could have 7 more students come into the grade level and we would still be okay. That's a fairly large percentage jump.
Right.
That part I'm not overly concerned about. But when I'm looking at, say, 5th grade, I could have 3 more come into 5th grade, and then I'm maxed out. That's probably my tighter class. 6th
So-
grade, I've got more space.
So our Valley View, Mrs. Pelkey, I think it's Mr. O'Leary, all the remote teachers are doing a remote program that's different from what's in our classroom, correct?
They are following the same curriculum, but it's fully remote,
Okay.
yes.
So as we go to Henry Wilson and Farmington High School, we're going live into the classroom.
Correct.
So while it may not be needed to shut down additional students at Valley View right now, we may want to look at a policy for Henry Wilson and the high school and ask Department of Education, if we're providing the same curriculum remotely that we are in our high school, are we meeting our educational needs? Other than the requirements that they put out for special ed.
At this point, there's been nothing that said we're required to have one or the other, because we could go fully remote. The board could
Yep.
vote, everybody's out, and that's still considered they're getting an education.
Right.
So I'm happy to ask the commissioner for that distinction if you would like me to.
I just think it protects us if we have to say to a high school student, we're at capacity, we can't allow you in person, you're going to have to go remote. That if we have to make that administrative decision, I think we're protected by the commissioner's office.
Okay.
So if we go to the high school and we take, say, the room 100, number to max is 0, and it says 19 students currently in the classroom, 4 remote. So you're saying in this case, if those 4 remote students wanted to come in,
We've got no place to
we've
put
got
them.
no place to put them.
Yep. And these are
So
the
you're all
classrooms.
but
These are the classrooms that are close. We have other classes that have more space, and we've listed the ones that are either at capacity or approaching capacity. The others we're fine on.
So you have 11, because some of them are at capacity but have no more potential.
Correct.
Well, actually, I take that back. There's one that has 1 to max. No, there's no remote students. If so you have 11, which has that scenario where we may not have space. Have you identified yet any, so if these are 11 are potentially problematic, have you come up with any solutions to resolve it as far as other space?
We are currently using our other larger spaces. We're using the cafeteria for classroom space during time that it's not being used for lunches. The gym is used for lunches as well. Tougher to get the wireless connections in there to get that up and running and get it switched over to be able to use for gym class and for lunches. We don't have a lot of other options, particularly as the weather gets colder. As, you know, if the weather's good, outside's an option.
So we have
but
no
it's
other
different.
classrooms that, if these had to be split and we had to get another instructor?
I guess if we had to get another instructor, or are you looking at
We don't have
having...
rooms available, it wouldn't make a difference. But if we have rooms available,
I don't have many rooms available. I will look and see how many.
and
And
this kind of gets back to Tim's question, you know, if we
most
have
rooms are used
exhausted every
most
possible
periods.
option, you know, are we able to say no? And in this case, have we exhausted all possible options? And one comment you just mentioned about the Wi-Fi in the gym or the cafeteria?
If we are going, it's not so much the Wi-Fi, but if we're going to set up the computers, if you've got dual screens so that you can have a teacher presenting and having students remoting in, to get that set up and broken down each time because you're swapping out for lunches and gym class, there's a lot further to run wires in the gym than there is in some of the other spaces. So it's wired at the stage end, but that's the end they're using for gym
Wired
classes.
for power to the computers?
Right.
Not necessarily to the Wi-Fi? not to the-
Correct. Not so much the Wi-Fi, but power to the computers.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, if we had to, what's the capacity at the, I guess they call it the town hall now, the old middle school upstairs? What's the capacity of those classrooms if we needed a satellite school? I haven't been up there in
I think
years.
the rooms are smaller than what we currently have here, but
They are.
Okay,
they're
They are.
probably half the size.
okay, all right.
I mean, the only other scenario is town hall, large area.
Yeah,
I don't know what the Wi-Fi capacity is there.
Well, if we were in need, we would probably have to supply it. I mean, it
Right.
may have some there, but chances are it may not be
Sufficient.
sufficient. So, I mean, it's just the space that may be available if we needed to, but logistically it may not work, but
I mean, they run the cameras out of there on town meetings, so there's gonna be some type of
True.
that's just cable.
in-building.
Right.
That's
But if
dedicated
you're-
cable only.
Yeah, it would have to be a self-contained class that's there because swapping classes from the high school to go downtown and back would be logistically tough.
So, I guess gonna continue working on that, and then let us know when a situation causes this to be a problem.
I will say at the high school today, we do have a few more students who've chosen to be remote based on what's going on at Henry Wilson. So this may have eased up a little bit. These numbers were as of Friday. But I wouldn't say that that's going to solve long-term because I suspect that when Henry Wilson is back, those students will be also.
So on the building internet, what did we find out about the budgetary item between the SAU and the school that we talked about last week?
Let me grab the... So on that line, the We had a savings in the internet line as we went to the new contract, but that was also used for our failover with Atlantic Broadband. So that line is pretty much taken. Let me see. So our internet data services for the district budgeted at $22,000. That will be taken up by both the 1 gig line and the failover. Those will take that line there.
Is that a one-time expenditure to do the infrastructure, or that's an annual cost?
That's the annual cost. So that's our monthly charge on that for that line.
So the Atlantic Broadband is free under the contract, isn't it?
Part of it is, and then we have an additional failover for the SAU that's around $3,000 for the year.
Okay,
So
but that
what-
was a pretty hefty line item. That was in the, was it 27,000 for that line minus 3,000? So where's the other 24,000?
No, if the 22,000 that's budgeted here, that's for the internet line. That's for the internet that we have coming in.
Okay, what
There were two sections of it.
Yep.
One was
one was the gig for all the schools,
correct,
and then there was a second line item strictly for the SAU.
right.
And the question that was asked,
Those were combined, so that rather than do the two separate pieces that were originally proposed.
okay,
But then we did the additional failover with Atlantic Broadband. It was about a $3,000 charge for the year. And I'll go back and get that exact figure. I did not get that for you, and I
so
apologize.
if there's two separate lines, one of which is 27,000 for the SAU, if I heard you correctly.
23.
23.
Thereabouts, yeah.
And you spend $3,000, that leaves 20,000 in that line. Where is that 20,000?
That 20,000 is going toward the internet for the rest of the district. You've got the district internet and the failover. Those are the two pieces.
When you say district, are we talking,
The internet services for all three
Schools.
buildings,
Okay.
yes, yes. I'm not talking about the SAU, I'm talking about for all three schools.
so what did we increase in the initial segment that was the gig upgrade? What did we increase that was designed to go to all three schools? Did we increase the capacity of what's coming into our schools?
We increased, there were additional fiber pieces that were completed in the project, and then we increased the bandwidth
So was that before this board was sworn, or
Yes.
after this board was sworn?
before. That part of the project was done through our E-rate project. I will get you a full report, and
So
I'll have it in the board folder.
That's approximately, say, $6K per school for the internet on an annual basis, and $3K for the SAU is separate, with some failover or whatever that you described. What was our cost before the upgrade to the speed we're at now? Or the
It
data?
was actually pretty similar.
Okay.
We had budgeted last year for $23,000. We actually brought it down $1,000. We've upgraded and maintained our cost range. It hasn't gone up significantly.
But that 23,000 was only for the SAU, correct? There's a
No, that was district-wide. It says district, but it wasn't SAU, it was district-wide.
So what was that bigger number for all three schools
Hold on.
to get to the gig? There were two budgetary items that were submitted. One was the line item that was dedicated towards the SAU, for when you were up on Charles Street, and there was a second one dedicated towards the SAU, and there were significant numbers.
I will go back and pull those, Tim. I don't have that in front of me right now.
So we'll have that next week?
You will.
Thank you.
Okay. Going next to school procedures.
So we talked last week about our morning procedures and how that was going. Those are improving. We have fewer numbers that are not coming in with our screeners completed. We did make a change to the screeners over the weekend, that rather than having Justin attest that the temperature is lower than a certain point, we are asking for the temperature for each student daily. And in addition to that, we are looking at collecting that not only from mornings, but also before any sports practices that take place as well, so that we have a baseline and a late afternoon temp before they go into practice.
Go ahead, Tim.
Two things. One, on the numbers that aren't compliant with the screening, do we have an idea of what that number is and what is the amount of staff that it takes to deal with that number?
It's been typically in each building, they've got a staff member at each door checking them in as they come in.
But once they don't have the form, or once they're not on that list, they get sent to an isolation area.
Right.
And what does it take to staff that isolation area? Is it one person in each?
It's typically been one person, as far as my understanding is.
So the student's not bringing in the form, is tying up 3 staff members, and between the buildings combined, how many aren't compliant with filling out the forms in the timely basis that you need?
By Friday, it was down to single digits in each building. I don't have today's numbers.
Is it
Okay.
repeat offenders or singular?
A little bit of both. The repeat offenders have become much better in the last couple of days.
Right. I'm going to renew my motion that I don't think it's too much to ask parents to do the screenings. It takes all of 2 minutes. And I'm going to renew my motion that the first time a child comes in without their screening, they're given a warning. The second time, they're placed on remote for a week. And the third time, they're placed in remote full-time. We need parents to comply with our safety rules to keep our kids safe.
I'll propose a friendly amendment to do verbal warning, written warning, and then the week of remote and the last step of the semester remote. Is that what it was? What was your?
They're
last
remote, period. They're not gonna
So
be
that's my friendly amendment, is if you guys accept it or not. It should be verbal, written, then the last 2 steps.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Joel?
Well, verbals are always tough to prove.
Well, I'm not, have no problem with 2 written ones. I'm fine with that.
I would say if it's a documented phone call,
Well, if it's a documented phone call, that's one thing, but, verbals are easy to deny.
No, mine's just for two points. I'm not hung up on what it is. It could be 2 written. So, Joel, you going to accept that friendly amendment or not?
I did, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
So I'm going to open a discussion. Diana?
Yeah, if I could just make a quick point. I really, to start with, Diana Tonito, Director of Student Services, I really appreciate what you're trying to do for us in terms of simplifying the issues that we have and opening the day of the school. My only concern is, and I bring this up, is those parents that don't remember to screen their kids are likely those parents that are not going to be real attentive during remote learning. And that's the only fear I have from the point of view of an educator regarding the position we're placing these kids in because of a failing on the part of the parents. So that's all I open as discussion.
Does that open up a DCYF neglect problem? I mean, if they're not screening them, they're in isolation for a period of time, we're not getting their educational for that period of time, and do we go through a DCYF procedure to?
So DCYF's point of view, and granted, I don't speak for DCYF, but I can speak pretty readily assured that that's not something they're going to follow up on. They would ask us, well, if the kid was there, you had the child, why did you send the child out? If you're concerned about the child, you need to go do home visits. And then if it's a special education child, well, then we're in the situation, well, if it's a special education child and their needs are more readily met in the school, then we'd be placed in a position where we should be bringing them back to school. So I absolutely, we had people registering their kids the day before school started, and I am with you on how frustrating that is, getting some parents to agree.
And I hear what you're saying, Diana, and I appreciate what you're saying, but I think one of the ways we can resolve that is obviously if it's handled at the building level, they have an appeal to the superintendent, and if they're not satisfied with the superintendent, they can come in before us.
Yep.
But I have a hard time during the middle of a pandemic to not have a parent fill out a piece of paper that's going to keep our kids safe.
Yep.
And they can come to school and be here all day, and the parents don't have to watch them, or they can have the kids home with them.
Yep.
It's their choice.
Yeah, and I totally respect, and there are many days I'm right with you on that one. But I just opened that up as a
I appreciate
possible point
it.
of discussion.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. McCurdy has something to say, and I would just like to say that I don't agree with punitive measures to try to correct people.
So we'll have a kid die instead, Stan.
So, Mr. McGurk?
Blake, I don't know if we can hear you. Can you try again?
I'm here. Can I
Okay.
jump in, or was someone else talking?
No, that was you. That was for you.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, sorry. I've been watching this on YouTube, and I'm trying to go back and forth. I just wanted to jump in on behalf of Valley View, and Mr. Brown, I completely understand where you're coming from. I would say, from the Valley View perspective, we have maybe 2 or 3 students that have not been filling it out consistently. I mean, we have, on average, I would say 15 students a day that don't fill it out. And it's not a consistent thing, but parents either forget or they're too busy in the morning, that sort of thing. We've been able to tempt kids as they come in, those ones that don't have those sheets filled out, and make sure that, you know, their temperatures are in line. And then we contact the parents, and they're always, you know, very apologetic for it, and, you know, understand the importance of it. For me, it would be very difficult for me to tell a child, you know, you're going to go remote for a week or for the rest of the semester because it hasn't been done, especially at that age level. Because, you know, it's different, I would say, at Valley View than maybe the middle school or high school, because we're dealing with students that are, you know, anywhere between 3 years old and 8 years old. But I would say that the process that we have in place makes sure that those kids that are coming in are within all of those CDC, DHHS guidelines for being in the building with other folks. And then on top of that, you know, we're reaching out to parents, and the parents do understand. And this is new to everyone, and that's the big thing I've been trying to promote with our school community, is that this is a learning process for everyone. And even though we're a week and a half into it, I do feel, you know, it's still new. It's still new. This is not something anyone has ever experienced before. So I've been trying to show some leniency there, but throughout that leniency, also trying to provide a learning opportunity as well. So that would be my only hesitance to put something out there where we say, you know, after this many times you have to go remote, especially with those kids that are coming in and, you know, they're really benefiting from being in our school. So thank you for your time.
Anyone else on the discussion?
Mr. King.
Go ahead.
I'm not a big punitive person either, because I'm not necessarily convinced that punishments teach. But aren't we in the situation that we're in at Henry Wilson right now because out of a lack of responsibility and upfrontness on behalf of a parent? And I asked that question to either Ms. Vaughn, Mr. Castingway.
I need to be careful before I give out too much information. I will say that, not looking to point fingers, but we do have a situation that involves a similar situation.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
And I think,
You know, to me, the two written warnings there's an opportunity there to process this with the parent, so that there is some processing. It's not immediately punitive.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I had something.
Go ahead.
Max Conway, Principal.
Hey, Matt.
Henry Wilson. I just wanted to, speak to kind of Blake's point, as far as, it is kind of a catch-22 in a way, because yes, it is the parent's responsibility to do this, and, if we do take that punitive approach, it's then, the student who's really being punished, when he or she really has nothing to do with the COVID-19 screening. But I agree with Mr. Brown in several ways, because, at Henry Wilson anyway, we're having anywhere from 4 to 6 staff members tied up with us in the morning, which obviously is taking away from many, important tasks and items that we have to complete at the beginning of the school day. I mean, we've had a repeat offender where, this past week I needed to have our guidance counselors walk the student home from the school just to get it signed, because, this poor little girl has been in isolation until after 9:30 a.m. We're unable to get a hold of anybody. Finally, the guidance counselors walk her home, and mom is at home and then signs the form. But it is tough, because, will definitely be the students who, would experience some of the consequences as a result of their parents not doing the right thing in completing the COVID-19 screening that we're asking. So, it does present, to us as administrators, it does present some challenges in a variety of different ways, but, I am in agreement that we really need our parents to step up and complete these forms as asked and as required.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Not hearing any additional discussion, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
No.
So motion passes 3-2. Stan and I are opposed. Josh, Joel, and Tim for it. Moving on next. I did have some questions regarding procedures. It seemed like we had another instance regarding some screening regarding one of our sports. And I just want to be clear, what is our screening process based upon our opening plan, and what are we currently doing for sports as far as the screening process before, and who is doing that, and what are they doing?
Eric, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so, we have utilized the same pre-screening tool, that the high school is using for a typical day. So the parents are responsible for that. Along with that, we are doing a pre-screen, a temperature check as well at the end of the day now, before the kids get started. To go to an away game, there'd be screened put there to get a temperature check before they get on the bus. If it's a remote student that hasn't gone to school at all, they are to fill out that same form as if they were going to school. The parents are too, before they can go to any practice or any game. So there's still that accountability pre-screening form by the parent. And they are to, again, do the temperature check.
And Did we start out doing that, or is this a change that we made in the last week or so?
It's evolved with the unique things of the remote kit, and we started with a different form that was different, and what ended up being is trying to find which kid has submitted which form. I decided not to do an athletic one, which I was doing during the summer sessions, and just do the same form that we're using at the high school, which was a little confusing. Some of the athletes, as they were used to some of the skill sessions, used to doing a certain one. I then reverted to what we're doing for all the students, and just making that the same type of form, and then I can kind of use that as athletic director to kind of look through the athletes that need to, and then to add that into the plan for remote as well, along with being sure we're temperature checking at the end of the day, knowing even if they can come in the morning, they get their screen. So now we're, close to 7 hours after, 8 hours after, we want to get another check.
So are we checking symptoms at the same time that we're checking a temperature?
Such as?
If an athlete comes to the game at 4:30, he was screened in the morning, but couldn't they have diarrhea during the day,
They're
have a
filling out that
headache?
same form, so the same symptoms check is also on that form. Yes.
That who's filling out in the afternoon?
The afternoon, are you having parents screen or students self-identify?
Yeah, so the afternoon, we're not having the parents fill out the form again unless it's a remote kid. So they're gonna have to self-identify those symptoms. Coach will ask them how they're doing, etc. They're not gonna, they check in with the student athletes and then they do the temperature check.
So we're not using the form in the afternoon
It's the
again.
same questions, but it's, right.
We are or we aren't? Because what he just said is we're not. We're taking a temperature.
Are you using the form for the questions? Are they filling out the questions, or is it just verbal?
It's just verbal. We're not having to fill out another form.
Okay.
I don't know whether that's the way the sports program was presented to us on screening. When Eric presented opening up sports, this board was advised that we're going to be screening these kids heavily before they hit the field and before they get on the bus. And I don't think that covers it, because what happens when something like happened, this past week? Where's the record of what we're doing? We've got to, if
needs to be
we're
written
in charge of these kids, we've got a duty of care. If they stay after school and go to a game, there's a duty of care there in the school system. And to say verbally, hey, do you have a headache? Kids, I don't like it.
It's got to be a written screen.
It's got to be a better program, or I'm going to motion to shut it down.
I think, I agree with Tim. I think we're going to need to have, it's got to be documented. And I think you guys are going to have to figure out what you can do and what makes sense. Because depending on the age, depending on the, some of this is reasonable for expectations, and some of it may not be, depending on their age.
Mm-hmm.
A high school student could self-diagnose, I think, to a higher level than somebody that's in 5th or 6th grade.
Correct.
So how are we going to address it? Because it's potentially, or it appears it's maybe a hole in our screening for our symptoms with students.
So can I interrupt? Don't ask questions, sorry.
Go ahead.
So are we asking that, so at the end of the day, that the parents fill out another form to ask those questions?
Parents
I'm
have
not-
with the kid.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's certainly a concern where we have different levels of different age groups. And if we're going to screen, and we're going to screen by the list here that's listed, there's 11 symptoms that we're, quote, screening for. starting with fever or chills and going down to the last one being diarrhea. There's 11 other ones in there. And how are we going to adequately do that for the age group disparity that we have, which could be fourth grade?
It'll be seventh up.
Seventh
for
and
middle
up?
school sports.
Okay, so, and how are we going to address that and feel that we've done it correctly and documented it? And held people accountable for that screening? I mean, because we just can't say it's verbal, because somebody's got to have a record that they did it.
Right.
And who they did the screening, so.
And if students are at school all day, parents aren't with them to say what has
So
or
that's
hasn't.
logistically not feasible.
Right.
So there's, I mean, maybe the answer is the student has to fill it out, sign it. If the parent can't attest to it, in a remote situation, the parent could attest to it before he comes to that thing. But this thing, we could basically, we're screening for fevers, and we can say that student has filled out this questionnaire. I mean, what more can we do from that? I mean, we can, some of these symptoms may be apparent, but not many of them. 2 or 3 maybe. So I guess my question is to you, Tim, of if the student fills it out and the temperature check is taken, is that going to address it well enough to your satisfaction? I mean, because the parent is not going to see the student from past 7 o'clock, and if the game's at 5 o'clock, how are the parents going to test that assessment when they haven't
Well,
seen the
if
child?
the student goes home after school and then comes back for a game, that's one thing. If a student stays for practice, that's probably the issue.
And that happens more often than not. It's an after-school program. So we've got to find a way, and when this athletic program was presented, we were told as a board that these kids will be screened. It's not my function to come up with that screening process. Do we use a school nurse? And at the end of the day, screen the kids before they go to practice? Does the coach do it? I don't know those answers, and it's not my function to come up with those answers, but I want an answer.
No, understood. The coach certainly can do temperature screening, as could a nurse. As to those other pieces,
They can,
they can ask the questions.
if there's a problem in the morning with traveling out of New England, then the parent's going to note that on the form. I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about, or I think that the screening can be simplified in that, okay, here's your temperature, it's 98.6. Have you had a headache during the day today? No. Okay. Do you have do you feel like you have a fever? And ask those questions, and then I'm happy
But
with the
it's
screening process.
documented on that screen.
It's
Yes.
documented on that screen.
Right.
Everything else, with the exception of a remote student, has already been answered in the
Correct.
morning. That remote student, prior to coming, or the homeschool student,
Would need to have that
would
filled
need to
out.
have the entire form signed off by a parent. That would be my suggestion on how to do it.
And that's what we're looking at, but I heard that you were not wanting the questions asked. Now granted, if they're asked and then checked off, I just wanted to make sure that, yes, it's a verbal asking, but if it's a written recording, if that's sufficient in what you're looking for.
I want a written record no matter
Absolutely.
how we
Right.
do
Yes,
it. Whether
I
a
agree with
coach,
you.
if a coach asks the questions and the coach checks off the answer. If a parent does it, the parent checks it off. And
I agree with you there.
And then later, if there's another issue, you can then review all the documentation to see that the process was being followed, and if it was followed, was it followed or was it not followed? Because in that case, there may be some corrective action needs to taken there, maybe not, but without a written record, everything is kind of like,
Right.
yeah, I did it, I think so.
Right.
I'm not sure if I did it that day, but I think so. Then, just recently that, if this goes undone, it creates a bigger problem based upon the number of days that student could potentially be positive and then be in the school system.
Correct.
So missing it one day is a problem for every day after that.
Yes, it is.
So hopefully next week you can, I guess, bring it back to us with exactly everything you've implemented. Sounds like some things are a little fluid right now, but I think by next week it should be pretty much taken care of. I guess the next thing you had on was talking about a clarification of process with DHHS.
Yes.
You want to touch upon?
Let you know that you have a public question in the beginning for the community member.
Okay. Is it written? Can you read it to me, or is it, yeah?
Yes, I can read it to you.
Go ahead.
This is from Jimmy Ford. Jimmy, did you want to have you read it? I believe so. A question for the board when public questions are being accepted. With 5 COVID cases currently in Farmington, how many more cases will it take before the town goes to remote? Don't want to be playing Russian roulette with the town, children's health, and the health of the community. Do you have a number of cases in mind before you act?
I do not personally. I am aware there's 5 cases according to the state website. I think the last time we had cases, there was 2. There was a time there was 0. There was 2 before that. That's the highest that I've seen it. But depending on where those cases are, and we're not the ones who are deciding, and DHHS as far as deciding or giving us recommendations, sometimes requirements, as far as closing, cohort, as far as quarantining. So in some ways, our concern may be more elevated here with 5 cases or not, depending on if those cases are affecting the student population. And that is determined by DHHS and the exposure, and they're getting back to us. Right, Ruth Ellen?
And I may be able, as I kind of walk through the process,
Yeah. Speak to that.
speak to some of that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Are you ready? Okay. So I know in our reopening, and we've had some questions that said, our basic plan was if we have 3 cohorts that are sent remote, that would close the school. And we've had questions as to why Henry Wilson is closed with 1 student being positive. The process that I've been given to follow is at the point that I receive word that there's a positive test. I call DHHS and speak with a public health official. That positive test has to be verified through DHHS before anything else happens. Sometimes it's quick and sometimes it is not. I also make sure that I touch base with Chief Reinhardt to make sure that he has the same information I do. We triangulate that. He also confirms so that we know that we're talking about the same case. At that point, once the case is confirmed, I'm sent to another advisor at congregate settings because the school is considered a congregate setting where we need to do contact tracing. We speak at length about the different variables that are involved with the particular instance. In some instances, if I have 1 student who is either a presumptive positive, or it's presumed positive, has gone for a test and we're waiting for results, which we've had that case already, or if it's a confirmed positive puts me at a different tracing route. Presumptive positive means that we're now looking at having the next degree of students quarantined and on hold, but it doesn't take out a class. If I have a positive result, then they're going to look at what the layers are of potential contact. With that, we discuss how many people are involved, how many other tests might need to happen, how many people would need to go to quarantine, and then what the different impacts of that will be. The number of staff that are involved strongly impact whether or not we're looking at just sending a few home or sending students remote, because now I don't have enough staff to be able to handle the numbers that I would need to have in the building. There are a lot of different layers involved. Anyone who has been within 6 feet for more than 10 minutes of a student or staff member who is testing positive will be sent to quarantine. And I did put this up on our Facebook page a couple of weeks ago. I will reiterate that, and I will pull it back up again. It's what to expect from DHHS if someone tests positive. And once I contact congregate settings, they give us a list. We say, okay, here are the people that we know have been, or strongly suspect have been within that radius and within that contact list. Initially, we were told, okay, thank you, we have this list, we will now do the contact tracing. What we've realized is with the backlog at DHHS, it is taking them so long to do that. They are now, and I got different guidance today, saying, all right, you've got your list, and we went ahead and contacted people when we realized they weren't getting this done quickly. We will contact and say, we have provided, we've gone through the conversation in consult with DHHS. They have agreed that these people are on their list and they will be contacting you, but we are contacting you to let you know that you are now on a quarantine list per DHHS, as we've consulted with them. They've said, yes, these are the people who are included there. We will be letting you know that, but then they will follow up and say, this is where we are. If you are sent for testing or you are quarantined, that is a quarantine. That's not just you're not coming to school. It means you're staying home. What DHHS hasn't said is that all family members of a quarantined student are also quarantined. Some families, out of an abundance of caution, chose to have siblings go remote, and that's certainly their prerogative. But DHHS has said that those who were in first-degree contact are quarantined. Those who were in contact with the quarantined people are not required themselves to be quarantined unless that quarantined individual also tests positive. And then at that point, those who've been in first-degree contact with that person are also quarantined and are strongly recommended to go for a test.
Question.
And
Go ahead.
You have one of your staff members asking about what are the protocols for substitute teachers before they enter the building.
Who's that?
Substitute teacher, what's the protocol for a substitute teacher? They're going to be doing the same type of screening, and those will be coming through the SAU, and then I will be passing that on to the individual schools, because all of the substitutes are on the SAU list, and I don't know any given day which building they're going to be in, and to try to say, oh, you filled out the wrong screener. It will come to me and I will pass it on.
And that was from Lisa Abbott, sorry.
Okay.
Tim, you had a question?
I got one comment. Number one, the board's not playing Russian roulette with anybody's child. The board's made it clear that the decision is a parental decision on whether to be remote ed or come to school. This board and staff is going to take every precaution they can to protect the safety of the children. Can we guarantee that none of them will get sick? Absolutely not. My second comment is MUR shows 5 positive cases. We know of 1. Could the other 4 be UNH students? Absolutely.
Or they could be family members of this student. We have no idea because we're not on the contact list. But I would also like to make a comment that parents need to make sure when they do this screening of their students that they take it seriously and do not send their kids to school if they present symptoms.
If they present symptoms, or if you or your students are asymptomatic, but you've taken your student for a test because of a potential contact. If you are tested, stay home until you have your results.
Right.
Stay home. And please let us know that the test has happened. We'll be very happy with you when it's negative, but we have a lot of work to do if it's positive.
This might be a better question for non-public. can we publicly say, out of the numbers that we've quarantined in the middle school, how much is staff and how much is students, or do you not want to go there in public session?
I would rather not go
Okay.
there.
All right, I'll bring it up in non-public.
Okay, so moving on to reports.
Just letting you know that since we've kind of gotten off of that cycle, I'm looking that with the 1st of October, getting back to our typical reporting schedule. We had been doing and have been doing right along financials for the first Monday, curriculum and student services, and then looking at the third Monday for principals. If that's something that you're looking for a change in, please let me know so that I can give staff time to make those shifts.
I'm okay with it.
Excuse me, Mr. Board Chair.
Go ahead. I think it's-
Can I just say something real quick, going along
Yeah.
those lines as well? Just because we've seen it a lot at Valley View in the past week, and parents have been, great about it. But if you are traveling outside of the New England states, just know that when you come back, there is going to be a 14-day quarantine period. I think that's something that the public needs to know. I've been trying to put it out there with Valley
Is that on a form?
families, but I'm just.
It is on the
putting that out
form.
there as well.
Okay. But that is on our questionnaire?
It is on the form, and because they have to.
It's just something a lot of families I don't think have understood.
Right. We have heard from different ones that trips are being planned, and there needs to be an understanding that if leaving New England or traveling even within New England on public transportation, so if you were to fly from Portland to Boston, that's not the same as being in your own contained vehicle. So certainly if you have any travel-related questions, feel free to reach out, but that quarantine is part of, or that restriction is part of that screener.
So I think as we get closer to Thanksgiving, Christmas, February vacation, we should be putting out notices, just letting or reminding parents of what the expectations are. And there is a duty of care on the parent to comply with these regulations. If a parent ignores our regulations, sends a child into the building with a temperature, there's consequences that come along with that, or potential consequences.
Okay, getting back to reports, I don't have an issue with the proposed time. I do have a question regarding the financials, though. I did see an email from Jody from the Budget Committee. Are we need to be furnishing something to the Budget Committee that we owe them?
I
Was
didn't
it
see
June?
that, but
Email came out Friday that they didn't get their reports.
Oh,
Going
I
back
did not see
to,
that. I will.
going back to my comment, when we get our financials, I don't see a need. When you take the time to send us our monthly financials, I don't understand why they can't go to the Budget Committee. If there's a correction from this board on those financials, then, we can make the Budget Committee aware of that at the meeting. We're going into budget, and the last thing I want to do is create turmoil within that Budget Committee. So,
Certainly.
and I understand you've got a lot on your plate, so when you hit send to us, if we do, whoever you send them to be processed, if we do it at the same time, they got plenty of time to review them.
And is
And I-
that,
and I think-
is that a board directive?
I think,
I don't see, I agree, if we've got a monthly statement that we can just put them on the list to get it, I think that would make sure that we've given them information and don't forget it. If we correct it, we can forward that along or discuss it at the meeting. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks. If the rest of the board wants to pipe in regarding putting them on the monthly mailing list of the financials. Josh, Joel, Stan?
I don't know, Richie. I'm all set, thanks.
Joel?
All set.
I guess we're all, I guess we'd like to have that done. As long as I can
All right,
interpret that.
all set, all right?
Didn't hear an actual motion. Was there a motion?
No, that was a board directive,
This is
so.
more of a consensus, that's what we'd like to have done, so,
Okay, that's fine.
yeah. Just so we don't get in a situation again where we forget to send something to somebody
Okay.
that
And-
needs it for budget season.
And I was not copied on that from Jody.
Oh, you
I
want
see.
it? Sorry.
So-
I should have looked at it because I got it and I assumed that she would have. I'll look next time. I
Okay,
just
that's
saw it, I think when did it come in? I looked at it maybe Saturday night and I went, oh, okay, something that's why I kind of had a note here to bring it up.
Okay, no, I'm glad you did. Saturday, I had the phone pasted to my ear for about 12 hours, so.
Moving along into old business, COVID testing was.
You had asked me
Yep.
to look into having tests made available here. I did check with Commissioner Edelblu to see where that fell within what we were being directed to do. He spoke with Commissioner Chivinette, and he said that they are about 5 to 6 weeks out for being able to provide testing. He is not at this point looking for that to necessarily be done by the schools because there is a fairly lengthy certification process that has to be in place in order for a facility to provide the tests.
Yeah.
To do them
So in
ourselves.
5 or 6 weeks, they'll be able to provide testing kits for us to distribute?
Potentially. He was a little hesitant to give me a firm timeline on that, but he said there is a potential there. We are not at this time able, because we are not a medical facility, nor do we have a medical facility on campus other than a nurse's office to just order our own. But they're looking at that because they realize that the need is increasing. So.
Okay.
So on the self-tests, can we find out as they come out in the 5 weeks? If I understand it, we don't have anybody here that would be certified to do that. What is the certification level that we need? For instance, can a paramedic or EMT or somebody administer that test for us?
I will double check on that. I'm also assuming that once those are available, that we'll also get the other information of what would be involved in doing that.
Yeah, because we may have some of our fire department, which is qualified medical professionals, at least two. I know we have paramedics and different
We have
levels of qualification.
EMTs.
Yeah, we're at the eye level now. So we do have paramedics that work for us, but we
Right.
don't have the paramedic protocols in place.
Okay.
So,
So at this point, there's not a protocol for a paramedic to administer the test? Is that what you're saying?
or administer paramedic medical treatment on our ambulance. Because our ambulance isn't certified at the paramedic level, and even though we may have some paramedics working as EMTIs, they're not, when they're working for Farmington, they're not working as paramedics, is my understanding. I could be wrong.
But depending on what the requirement is, it may not even be at that level to administer the test.
Could be.
It could be at a lower level.
Could be.
We'll find out.
Going back to, if I can just jump
Go ahead.
back, I just pulled up the email, and it came from Jody's Yahoo account. It's addressed to you, Manager.
Okay. I looked at her
Friday
other
the
account.
18th.
I'm sorry.
But again, if we do it beginning of the month,
Yep.
when we get our
It won't
reports,
matter.
it's not an
Right.
issue. Done.
Okay.
You are correct.
Next on our agenda, we had legal services RFP.
So you had requested
Yep.
an RFP be placed in the board folder?
I've got it, and I've got some proposed edits to it.
Okay.
And I think to me, it's a little long in the tooth. Probably my general opinion regarding documents. I think for me, the section, general scope of services, could be truncated to just pretty much all of those services typical of an SAU in a school district, instead of verbatim putting them out. I'm not opposed to leaving it, but I think it could be condensed. I mean, lawyers know what, if they're qualified in this field, they know what they're talking about. And the last change is on the scope of proposal, second to last I, it says, a list of at least 5 school district references with names and contacts and telephone numbers.
This is what was required with our last
Right,
RFP.
I would
Certainly could be
recommend
changed.
that we change to just a list of school district references with names or contacts, because this firm could be potentially smaller and only have 2 or 3 or 4. So I don't know why I don't see a need for that 5 school districts, because they may not have had that much exposure. They may have only worked for 2 districts for 20 years, for all I know. That's
So
the-
just a list of school district references?
Yeah, and I would propose, I think the scope of services could be truncated down to anything usual and customary to service a school district in SAU. The only other thing I would like to see added to it is the firm submit with those, with their...
Where are you?
Well, this is where, I just don't know where you would want to put this, but
Okay.
the firm to submit in their proposal, the primary attorneys that would be serving us in the 3 general areas. One would be negotiations, the other one would be, I guess, employment law, and the other one would be school laws or
Liability, school liability.
yeah. I mean, there's 3 general scopes. I mean, that might not be the best description.
Well, you've got special ed law, you've got liability, you've got
With education law.
But the
education law.
So you got education law, employment law, and union. So I'd like to see the primaries from each of those firms, because if we're going to pick a firm, consider a new firm, I want to see the credentials of those primaries, whether it be union negotiations, employment law, or all the other encompassing school law.
And often negotiations and employment law will go together.
That's fine.
Okay.
But that way, when we look at a firm, we can say, the board can say, okay, this is the person that we're going to be looking for in union negotiations or employment law, and then this board can say, okay, we're going to check their work history in this area by asking around or checking and say, yes, we feel comfortable with this person, or we may have them in. You know, I mean, typically, every firm has a lot of lawyers, and some of them may be better fit for us than others. So that's the only changes that I...
So the names of the attorney or attorneys who would be assisting us?
Basically, the primaries.
Okay.
Because typically, they would assign a primary to this.
Right.
So who's going to be the primary? Now, granted, if that person is out on vacation or what, we'd get somebody else. But typically, if they're going to pick up a new client, you know, they have a primary who they're going to assign it to.
Like a bio on the attorneys, something like that?
Yeah.
A resume?
Yeah, resume or, yeah.
CV or something, okay.
So these would be the primaries that on servicing your account. This one being specializing in this. I mean, some of them might have dual specialties, but that way the board can at least see who they're proposing to provide services.
What do you think, I just put in some random dates in there, I don't know if the dates were,
The date was December 2nd, right? Or
That's
November
Uh,
2nd?
Electronic bids received Wednesday, October 28th, and then approval on November 2nd.
That gives them a month. I was okay with that. Any discussion on the board as far as content or the dates?
And then looking at this beginning January 1.
I think that's up to the board.
yeah, if you wanted a fiscal year, if you wanted to change.
Do you want-
No, I think we should, that the award date should be up to the purview of the board.
I think it should be 9/21, but we can't do that.
Yeah, so at that date, I
So
would
guess
say,
my question is, are we looking at
How
this
long?
being a fiscal year contract, or are we looking at this being
Multiple year.
potentially a calendar year contract? And then are you looking at a 1 year or a multi-year?
I would say the start date would be as soon as, based upon the board's decision, and that would be I would just structure it as annual services, and the board could modify it with the firm if they chose at the time of entering into a contract. You know, because if we get to a point where we say, okay, we're considering leaving current form, and then the board may say, okay, depending on the time, it could be in March, and that would be, you know, some of this year and next year. Or it could be,
Right, I guess I'm just trying to give if a firm is going to bid on it, to give them an idea when we might be looking for services to begin so that they know what they're bidding
I think it
on.
would be based upon a decision of the board. The board could win submittal of those things, and think the board could make a decision right away, or the board could choose to wait. I mean, that's a decision that I think needs to be up to the board. And so I would strike to commence at January 1 and just leave that open, and
Annual services with an option.
annual
for-
services.
With an option to renew.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, based upon mutual agreement, because, I mean, their fees may change year to year. We're not looking to hold them to a price for 5 years when they submit their rates. I mean, typically, they wouldn't quote that anyways. They would quote such that if their rates changed, that's what would happen. So change the start date to be open.
I'll
Annual
just leave that
services.
off and just put annual services with an
Right.
option for 1-year renewal through mutual agreement.
For me, make the changes to take out the at least 5 school district references
Done.
and add them to list, or give us the resumes of the primaries that would be servicing us.
So you want names and resumes?
Well, whatever typically they would send. I mean, it might be,
Yeah. We can
they
find out
might be,
what their background is, and where they went to school.
I mean, if we get these names, if the board members feel ambitious and they could, do some research on these board members and look at maybe some of the cases they've sat on, or ask around to other districts what they may have worked in. So far as discussion on the content, anyone else with a discussion on the content changes? Is everyone okay with the changes that I've suggested? It's awful quiet around here.
Good.
Do you want the scope of proposal to, scope of services to remain the same or truncated?
What do you mean? Which part are you?
So, the scope of services that's A through Q, are you looking for that to just read?
I think it
usual
can be
and customary?
truncated. I mean, I'm not hung up on it, but I think listing through all this stuff, I mean, we always like a lot of words too, so. I'd say that's an option to me. It's just,
So is there a consensus?
no, I think you just have to roll with it. That part you can do what you want.
No, this is your RFP, so what would
Okay.
you like there? I'd like a
Tim,
consensus.
you want to truncate it, or you want to leave it as far as the scope of
Just
services?
leave it as is. I mean, my main concern is the contract that we file with the attorney versus the
Right.
proposal, but.
Okay, I'm okay with that. We'll leave it as is. Then, I wanted to, as far as distribution, I think that we should directly target all the firms in this area that we know we work in municipal law, along with whatever we do for general posting.
Okay,
So, because we want to make sure that all the potential candidates see it, and based upon their work schedule, they may not be directly looking if in a general posting. So, a few that I looked up in this area, we have a current law firm.
do you want to give me a
I got a list.
Give me a list. Okay, do you
You
want
might
to?
find some other ones. We got a current law firm in no order. I got Drummond Woodson. I got Donahue Tucker Shindella. I got Mitchell Municipal Group. I got Upton Hatfield and Municipal Law Associates. They're in Epsom. Never heard of them. And any other ones that I think staff is
You got Pretty Flaherty out of Concord, too.
pretty Flaherty.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't come across that one, but
Are you looking to include our current?
yes, that was the
Okay,
first one.
Soul Kidder.
Soul Kidder.
So no, that wasn't listed, so, okay.
No, I said our
Oh,
current law firm.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any law firms that they want to make sure we directly solicit?
It was municipal what? I'm sorry, I missed the second.
Municipal Law Associates.
Thank you.
They're in Epsom. By their title, that's what they say they do. Upon looking, they may not be that.
We'll look and see if it includes school law, if it's
Yes,
just town law.
they
Yep.
listed it, and I was
Okay.
struggling to find the answer, but I came across it, and I said, well, they're in the area, so. And any other
Would you have after Upton?
was Municipal Law Associates.
Oh, how about before Upton?
Mitchell Municipal Group,
They're out of Concord.
Most of the big ones are out of Concord.
Upton Hatfield. DTC is out of Exeter, right?
Yeah, they got a bunch of different offices. Right?
Okay. I can't think of any other ones. I did a little research, and that's all I came up with, so.
Do you know who Oyster River uses?
Wadley
I can
Star
find
would
out.
be another
I
one.
can find out.
What's that?
Wadley Star.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not one of these. I can find out.
But it might be one to add to the list.
Right, definitely, if you come up with another one that's in this area and has expertise, I'd like to directly solicit, plus for the general posting, because not everybody's always looking. So I'll make a motion to approve it as amended,
A second.
seconded by Josh. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that's unanimous.
I believe it was.
Okay. Caught me in the eye crossfire.
Do you want me to reconsider?
Under new business, we have donation acceptance for drone project, Valley View.
I got a bunch of old business.
Oh, old business, okay, we're going to finish up old business, sorry. Anybody with it? Well, Tim's got a list, so,
I've checked it twice.
you sure?
What's the status with the request from Chief Drury to meet with the resource officer? We talked about last meeting having her come in to the
Okay.
board.
I will double check with him.
Okay. 2 weeks ago, or it might have been last week, it was 2 weeks ago, I asked about the availability for a phone for our table for direct call-ins from the public. Has there been anything done on that?
They're still in the process of getting phones set up. I will see if I can get one in here.
Okay. So we can't run a line from that one that's in the office here over to here?
I don't know that we can't, so.
Okay.
Maybe we get something that's Wi-Fi. No, we can't.
Question that we didn't have driver's ed and somebody was going to look into that. Has anything been done with that?
I would like to put out an RFP for driver's ed services.
Okay. How long will it take to do that?
I'm hoping to have an RFP for you in the board folder for next Monday.
Perfect.
How long have did we do it? We didn't do it last year? Did we do it the year
We
before?
had,
The year before, I think.
we had through midwinter or so. Or I believe the last class ended in January.
Now, in those drivers ed, typically, do we just provide the space, and then the parents or the driving students pay for their services?
Yes.
Or do we supplement that somehow?
We do not. It has been
Provide
solely
the space.
the parents pay for that. And in our current situation, what I would suggest for structure would be that while we could partner with someone to, we'll help to make sure the kids get the information, that the instructional pieces would be done remotely, and then the driving would be done, at least in our current situation, so that I don't have students either coming in from another school or a staff member who's not part of our regular cohort mixing with multiple cohorts. We have students who would be doing instruction remotely and then doing their driving. They could be picked up here to go do their driving time.
Now, what if we provided alternative space besides the school for that lesson?
Most of the ones that are doing it now are doing it remote.
Oh, okay.
The ones that are working out of the community center in Rochester.
And we don't necessarily have an alternative space available unless maybe it's the annex
But you don't necessarily need to have a school space, right?
Well, if we're going to provide, we could
Right.
solicit getting another space, but we
Yeah.
don't, right.
Town space.
As far as space that we have already to say, we're going to put you here, it might be sitting amongst the stacks in the annex or in the basement. There's chairs in the basement of the annex, but I don't know that that's where we want to go.
Anything else, Tim?
Yeah. Key fobs for the PD, has anything moved in that direction?
I have swipe cards just about ready to go, and they'll have those this week.
This week, okay. One of the things looking back in past minutes with the prior board, when the superintendent's contract was renewed, the board agreed to set quarterly goals for the superintendent. You've got a fairly new board with only two, I'm trying to think of the right word, senior members.
Incumbent.
I know that it's been chaotic since the day we've been sworn in, but I'd like to schedule that. And I think rightfully that should probably happen in non-public unless you request otherwise. I just think it'd be good to sit down so that you know where I'm coming from and the other board members and kind of what our expectations are so that we continue a healthy relationship.
Certainly.
My last thing on the board, my list is, we've talked about it since we've been sworn in. We're going to be talking about a budget timeline. I'd like to meet within the next couple of weeks with the Board of Selectmen. I know they're going to have some pretty damning budgetary issues before the Budget Committee this year if things don't change. I'd like to meet with them and talk about, any joint ventures or anything that would serve the benefit of the taxpayer. And maybe if you could reach out to Arthur.
Sure.
To schedule that and schedule it maybe a week of one of our off meetings, like a 6 to 7, so we can start down there and come here or something like
Yeah,
that.
that might work.
I don't know how the board feels. The board may not even want to do it.
Yeah, I'm okay with doing it. I think
Do we have off meetings?
we will.
Okay.
Well, we do. It's the off-scheduled meeting is what I tried to describe.
Is this the off-scheduled meeting or the regular meeting?
This would be a regular.
Oh, see, there you go. So maybe next week.
Maybe next week. Well, we're not doing anything.
We're not doing anything. Before our meeting, we're not doing anything.
I will check with him and see when I can schedule that.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Sure, there's only...
There's only
seven.
6.
I think it was 7. Oh, 6. I wrote down. Yes, it was 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. FEMA.
Yes.
No more funding available for...
Yeah, we got confirmation. FEMA confirmed on Friday, September 11th, the operation of schools, even with changes necessitated by the COVID-19 environment, is not an emergency protective measure eligible for financial assistance under Public Assistance Category B, because the education of children is not an immediate action necessary to protect public health, life, and safety. As such, FEMA does not provide financial assistance for PPE, cloth face coverings, disinfecting, physical barriers, temperature scanning for the operation of schools. That is their interpretation both of the original policy and the updated policy that went into effect on the 15th of September.
So where does that leave us? What have we dedicated or what have we expended that we anticipated?
There's everything at this point has hit the CARES Act.
Okay.
The only thing that we were anticipating as a maybe was additional custodial staffing. And that's not listed specifically in that list, although it says disinfecting. So I'm assuming that the hours for disinfecting, not just the cleaning supplies for disinfecting, are probably included in that overall umbrella, but I could ask for clarification. I'm guessing that this is kind of one of those no means no things. If that's the case, we are talking about, Larry has an overtime plan that we've looked at with at least some of his staff to cover some of the pieces. I do have at least one position that I did not replace a teacher who resigned back in June. And we do have some savings from staff who've come in who are less experienced and therefore further down on the pay scale. So I am looking at some savings that I can use for those additional custodial pieces that we're going to need to put in. Is it going to be all that we need? Probably not. The cost of our chemicals for cleaning, depending upon where things continue to roll, is going to outstrip what I have left in the CARES Act. The governor has repeatedly said there is money available. At the point that I have the CARES Act fully allocated, I fully intend to ask for more.
Okay, so I'd like for the next meeting, just a brief reporting of what we were putting in FEMA that's no longer allowed.
Nothing has gone into FEMA at this point. We were
So we
We were
weren't,
looking at thinking that those other pieces for additional custodial supplies and additional custodial time could potentially go there, but because that was a 75% match.
Right.
And this was the 100, we were using the 100 first, and then looking at moving to the 75 when we had to. The 75 isn't an option at this point, so.
okay.
So in that report, if I can clarify, one of the things I'd like to see is the CARES Act funding, what we've expended to date, and what we're anticipating on spending with the future balance. And then as far as the janitorial or the custodial, I don't want to insult anybody, positions that we're looking to hire, a flow chart of where, just so we have a written record of where that money's going to come from within the budget, so we document it out.
Yeah, so we know
We're not spending money twice.
we're projecting.
Absolutely not, no.
Staying on top of the
Yeah.
projection. Anyone else with any old business?
Okay, so let me make sure, so I need to do a CARES Act report.
Right. And you might as well do
You
the
want-
FEMA also, because we were slated some monies against that, though, weren't we?
We had done it on paper, but not actually having allocated anything to it yet. So they
But I was
had
planning
asked,
to.
we had planned to, looking at if I needed to put custodial in one place and educational in the other. I knew that I couldn't put anything that was computers, those sorts of things in FEMA. But right now, everything has hit the CARES Act, nothing has hit FEMA. We had early on given a list of here's where we think these can go, but that's not where they've landed.
Okay, so right now, there's no projected cost going to FEMA.
Correct.
Okay.
So there's nothing that we have to redo. It's just the whole, we can't use that as our next funding source. So CARES Act report, you're looking for custodial positions.
Well, the whole report from where we started, or what we've spent, or what we've applied to that, to what we're projecting to apply to that.
And then if that's expended, how are we going to, what lines are we going to pull to buy our chemical supplies and pay any additional custodial help that we hire on a temporary basis? So you mentioned the one empty teacher.
Right, and that's,
Like to
so
see the line
that's, I'm
item of the
looking at, yes.
bulk where that's coming out of.
Yep.
Salaries, benefits for that position, FICA, whatever retirement. And just identify the source of funding so that as we move forward,
We know
we
which
know where we
pieces.
are.
Okay. And was there a third piece of what you were looking for there? I just want to make sure that I had the
No,
full. So
no.
CARES Act and then the whole custodial piece, where to fund from. Okay, got it.
And then along that lines, I don't know, Larry spoke about the last couple meetings, a potential cleaning product, a solution by an outside service as far as treatment. Do we get any more information on that? Has he been in contact with us?
I've given up on that.
Okay,
He hasn't provided any more information. All he keeps talking about is some guy will come and talk to us. And I asked him for written information, and he hasn't come forward with anything.
So there's been nothing substantial for us to be able to say, here's next step.
have you
So-
seen any other districts going
At
for
this
approach like
point,
this?
I haven't.
Okay,
I will put out a quick inquiry to the listserv between the two of us we can take a look and see. He'll hit the business administrators, and I'll hit the superintendents and facilities managers to see who's got what. But right now, no one else has said, hey, this is where we're going, that I've heard.
Nobody else that I've contacted is good.
Okay, Tim?
Just going back to your list, I think we have to look at future PPE.
Yes.
If we're going to have to buy masks.
Part of that is in CARES Act already. I have more allocated than we have expended because I have to, so I have projected ahead for that.
Okay, and then
Yep.
the same thing with the hotspots?
That's also in there. We have another shipment coming in probably in the next week. We're not completely out, but we're getting down, so they're sending us more and reactivating the next group. And the nice thing with those is until we actually turn them on and hand them to a kid, we're not being charged until it's activated.
But I think, if we've already encumbered that for the rest of the year out of CARES Act, that's great. If not, then I think we have to project to the end of the fiscal year what we're going to anticipate spending and find a place to pull that money from.
What I've done with that so far is because I have to write the activity saying, here's the amount that I'm looking for this, I've given ballpark. We'll go through and see what we can project out based on what we have now. It's a week and a half. It's not solid numbers, but it'll give us a slight guesstimate to then be able to say, okay, if we take this through June, where does that put us? Yeah.
Posted, did we post the temporary custodial position?
Yes, we did.
When did we post it and where did we post it?
That was posted this week. I know that it was posted Ed Jobs, it was posted, of course, locally. I believe Cheryl has also posted it in local papers, and I have put in to have that included on the state website as well.
So the posting just went out today then?
No, the posting went out.
You said this week?
This week. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get a weekend. It has, last week didn't start. No,
today's Monday.
Sorry, no. No, it went out last week. It went out last week, I'm sorry.
Okay, did we get any candidates?
We've actually gotten some candidates in looking for the full-time positions, not the part-time.
I do have an update on something.
Okay, please come on.
So I just received an email and a phone call today from a company called ACP Facility Services, Temporary Custodial Staffing Projects, that contacted me and said that based in the Northeast, they've already partnered with a lot of school districts in New England to provide temporary custodial staffing services. And I called him back today, and himself and another gentleman are coming in tomorrow just to look at the schools to get an idea of, I told him that what we were looking for, and he's going to come in, take a look, and we'll try to get us some pricing and stuff on
I
it.
try to get them a tiered written proposal, meaning basically whether it's just, per person by the hour or, how they normally structure it, but not just, we want to quote this.
Right.
Tiered, because you may say, okay, I need 2 people 3 days a week, or I need 3 people 5 days a week.
Right.
That way you can say, or we may only have funds for a certain amount. So depending on what that estimate looks like, we may say, well, we're going to do some here and still try to fill a temporary position, and then some overtime, and then some temporary positions, and then use this, because this will probably be the highest cost, but we certainly got to consider it. So if we can get a tiered written proposal. Tim?
So what's the overtime proposal? Is that with current custodial staff, or is it current district staff?
I sent out a thing, it's for the current custodial staff so far, that I sent notice out to all my staff asking for commitments so that we can base what we're gonna need. So far, I've got, basically Valley View, I have two commitments to work, come in during the week, 3 hours a day early to help out on days. One person would work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 week. The other one would work Tuesday and Thursday, then they would rotate. Another person there has told me that he's willing to work at any school that I need him at during the day to come in early. The person that works days up there is committed to 3 days a week of staying over 2 hours a night for 3 days a week. I have one maintenance guy that's willing to work over to help out whenever I need him for overtime. And those are all the commitments I've got so far.
So can we project at some point in time with all these folks stepping up to the plate, how much we'll need for outside services in addition?
That's what
We
I'm
should
trying
be able
figure out,
to.
yeah.
Right now, we've got commitments for at least 21 hours a week, probably closer to 25 to 27. So with that, that would really be one of those part-time positions that we were looking at. And then we still have the other 2 buildings to talk to, so.
Nice.
Okay.
Is the intent also to reach out to any of the paras that might be looking for hours?
Potentially, the issue is that that's going to put them into retirement, and it's going to then change our structure. Well, if they're doing overtime, it puts them, right now at 32.5, they're not paying out retirement, nor is the district. If they hit 35 hours consistently, we're both paying retirement, which means a hit for them and a hit for the district. It's not an impossibility, but it is a change in structure for them.
Can we check with the retirement board to see if there's any type of emergency rule up there? I mean, there was something in the governor's original order that had to do with certain requirements that we were kind of excused from.
I don't believe retirement was.
My understanding on the retirement, and I was on the police side, not the teacher's side, was if it was a permanent assignment, then we have to start paying into the retirement system. But if we're on a pandemic and they're being assigned overtime based on the pandemic, which is a temporary situation, at least on the police side of Group 2, you didn't have to pay that retirement in.
Typically, and we'll check to see, if it's been a consistent assignment, but pandemic may change the whole temporary piece.
But temporary assignment, or temporary additional assignment, the temporary is the key factor with the retirement.
We can
And
ask.
it is temporary, because we're only going to be doing this till
we're not.
Right, which is, it's a few months away where the situation is going to change, whether it's going to be based upon kind of cases, or it's going to be based upon vaccine availability, or, even temporary, temporary is till the end of the school year, you could say that. So,
Yeah.
we should ask the question, because I would like to see, because we may be able to get some resources there that are already employees that may fill in, maybe even if we only get 10 or 15 more hours,
Well, the other,
or if you get 20, that would get us to filling some time that we know we need.
the other thing to think about is bus drivers, because if we go into a full remote session and we don't have hours for drivers and they're cross-trained to do custodial work, we have a job for them, whereas we may not if we're not cross-training them to do those functions.
And right now, we're only remote with one school, but that doesn't mean it couldn't change.
Tomorrow.
Probably not tomorrow, maybe next day.
We did see quite an uptick in remote meals requests today, obviously with Henry Wilson going remote. So we did do meals delivery today as well.
Okay, anything else, Larry?
No.
Okay, so hopefully they can get a written proposal for the next meeting.
Yep.
Nobody else have been in contact prior to temporary service? Because I know you reached out to some.
No,
and get any
no, this
feedback.
one just
Can you
kind of
check
came out of the
retirement?
blue.
Well, it must be a small business trying to fill a need that they see.
Everybody's got an angle.
You gotta do something for a living. Next, under new business, we had donation acceptance for drone project, Valley View.
Well, that's two. So for the drone project,
Okay.
because Tim had asked us to bring back his, and then I have a separate donation to accept.
Right. So we have another donation to accept?
We have the one from Mr. Brown, and then there's a second one that is within my parameter to accept, but I'm letting the board know about it.
Okay,
Yep.
so we don't have to motion?
You don't have to motion,
Okay,
I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're just talking about Tim's. Are you causing trouble again, Tim?
No,
No?
I was disappointed in what the auditors said. They obtained a legal opinion from New Hampshire Municipal. And here's the opinion I got back. Assuming there is no relationship which would require pay for work, which doesn't cover, pay for work doesn't cover school board, there would not appear to be any issue with the official declining to be paid his or her stipend and the board transferring those funds for any other purpose pursuant to its transfer authority. I hope that this is helpful, and please let me know if I can be of further assistance. And it's signed by the New Hampshire Municipal Attorney.
I'll pass it down. I guess, who did you speak with at the auditing, and I guess what was their experience level or comfort level with their opinion, I guess?
Mike Campo.
We spoke with Mike Campo, who is with Plodzik and Sanderson.
Yeah.
He is our principal auditor. He is a senior member of the firm.
So, I guess,
I mean, I can certainly share this with him, and...
I'd like it shared with Cheryl, because I'm at the point of, just like we did with legal, making a motion to change our firm. And I'm aware of their reputation as being good. I don't want to do that, but
for me, this may be in the gray area, or at least as far as gray as people doing it. I say that we basically proceed by making the line item transfer, allowing a donation, and let us flag us at the end. I mean, what are you going to take us out and shoot us? For line item-
Let's not say that. There's too much paperwork involved, please.
I mean, the reality is, we're transferring a stipend over to a donation of $1,100 for the benefit of the school.
It's technically a line item transfer. It's not a donation because the money never hit my pocket.
But you're choosing to donate the money.
I'm choosing to line item transfer the money to be used for a specific purpose.
And I put it on the agenda this way because last week you had said, bring it forward as a donation.
I did.
And yep.
I did, and I'd have no problem doing that, but when I got the word back from New Hampshire Municipal,
Then you had an issue with doing that, and I understand that.
I did.
Yep.
So I'll be the idiot that somebody can yell at a year from now. I'll make a motion to line item transfer that amount of money that is donated from the stipend fund to Fund 10 for the purpose of the drone project.
Well, it's in Fund 10 both ways, so.
Okay,
Technology account, but we've already taken
Yeah.
that vote.
Well,
so,
you did.
So that line,
Yeah.
you can make a motion to reaffirm our vote.
I'll make a motion to reaffirm it. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll
I
second.
mean, reality is, if it's in a gray
Right there from
area,
Josh.
they can fight it, we'll fight it out with the auditors at the end. So, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll miss
So was that 5?
No. Stan and Joel, did you vote?
Yep.
Okay,
I did.
okay.
Okay.
I guess it's
That's
5.
fine.
You came in on top of each other. We didn't hear it. Thank you.
Okay, next we have,
So the other is to let you know that we've had a
okay,
a donation to Valley View in the amount of $367.21. This was an anonymous donation that has come in through Amazon. We had some pieces that were in our cart that we were looking to pull together for supplies for students because we are needing to do individual supplies. There are no shared supplies this year. And someone anonymously purchased the items that were in our cart, and the materials arrived at Valley View for student
Good.
use. So thank you very much to whomever has provided us some additional materials, and I assure you they will be put to very good use.
Just a question on that is, and I know they come into the SAU as anonymous, and I can respect that. On the Amazon account, do you know who that person was?
I don't, and I
Okay.
don't believe that Mr. McGurty does either.
So there's no way to
The
say
only
thank
two-
you.
And,
I would love to be able to do that.
and the same thing with,
Can I jump in,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I'll give you the, although I'd love to give you the long version, you probably don't want to hear it because it's 8:30. So I'll give you the short version. Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, we started receiving Amazon packages. We got the packing slips with them, and myself, Mrs. Lavalette, and Mrs. Cameron were all kind of befuddled because we had no idea where these things were coming from. So last week, I think it was last Thursday, I contacted the Amazon customer service number and provided them with the order numbers, and she couldn't give me any information on who actually purchased these items. But I will say, like, she was beside herself because it seemed like it was coming from either an organization or a group that does this sort of, contributions to schools. But I couldn't get exactly who it came from, but it was just, an anonymous donation in good faith. So that's kind of the extent of it.
and the same thing with the drone program. I know you know who that person was. Can we send a thank you card on behalf of the
absolutely.
board? While respecting that
Yes.
anonymity. And I think you'll have another donation, from what I understand, coming in next week on the drone program from a third person.
Okay. We won't spend it till it's here.
If we keep going, maybe we can pick up Brian's salary.
Maybe we get a drone big enough to pick up Brian. Okay, any other new business? Oh, we have budget timeline, which
Yes.
furnished us that.
So you have two pieces in your board folder. One is the SB2 timeline that just gives, based on RSA, when all of these pieces have to hit. The other is one that is more specific to us, and with the exception of the dates that correspond to the SB2 timeline, some of those are shiftable. I based the numbers of dates, including the budget committee, on what they had done last year. Last year, they actually moved things up about a week for each of their respective dates. So I left that the same, not knowing for sure where they're looking to go with their budget calendar yet. I don't know if you have that, Tim.
I think that's going to come up for discussion. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't come up Wednesday night as far as
Okay.
scheduling. I'm going to suspect that it's going to be sooner than later based on some of the budget problems that we
Okay.
have.
Okay. So, right now, this is draft form for the board. I anticipate that these are dates that you're going to want to look at, to change, to modify, but I need to get at least general timeline to make sure that
You mean this one's gonna both?
this one,
SBA and school meetings, or you got two sheets?
there's a separate sheet that says, that's this one.
Okay, yeah, I didn't.
Yep, okay. Would you like my copy? I have it
I
electronically.
can have it here, I just
Okay.
printed some stuff out here.
So the SB2 is the one that is for
Everybody.
anybody that's schools and towns that are SB2. The other piece is more internal. I'm looking if the other presentation dates remain more or less the same, that final entries made to the budget by the administration need to be done by October 25th. If you move things earlier, then we need to move all of that up. So that's kind of my first deadline. We have traditionally held a budget workshop for the administrators and the school board to just kind of do a quick walkthrough. Here's the binder. We do a general overview to make sure that we have the pieces that you're needing for the formal presentations when those begin the following week. If we need to move that up, again, those are the pieces that I need to have first to be able to target for my administrators where everything else needs to fall.
Tim?
How much time do you see preparing for the first October 20th meeting from your administrators? Is that a 2-week process, month process?
It's usually at least a month process because they need to get from their department heads to them, they get things input, and then I need to do meetings with them to next. We might be able to shave a week off of that, but much more than that is going to make it very, very
So
difficult.
we're basically a month out now, a month and 4 days. One of my visions is, and I don't want to see administrators spend a lot of time on budgetary issues that aren't going to come to fruition from the board. So one of the things I'd like to see is either at a workshop or a regular meeting, this board to sit down as a unit and say, what is going to be acceptable to us as a school board for budget from the administration? Then that goes back to the administration, they do their magic and bring it back to the board. Doing it the other way, you could have an administrator spend 6 weeks doing research on a project that's never going to come to fruition. That's kind of the way I'd like to see it done.
Would you like to, do you need to have time as a board to set goals and then meet with us in a workshop? Or do you want to do that as a single collaborative process? And that's the
I
board's
think we
purview.
give, my suggestion, and I'm not speaking for the board, is this board gives you direction and you bring that direction back to your admin. We don't need in the first instance, we don't need that massive group huddle in giving direction on the budget.
But when you're talking about direction, you're talking about
Are we going to level?
broad strokes, yeah.
Are we going to level fund? Are we going to increase by 3%? Are we going to decrease by 3%? What
Well,
is?
these are the priorities that we need to hit along with other financial, because there may be educational priorities that we want to hit,
Yeah.
and then there may be financial things
Right.
that we want to hit. So
Right.
that would be a broad list of those requirements or goals.
So I would say, can we set a date then perhaps for that meeting so that I can extrapolate back from that?
About 2 weeks from today.
But that only
If you,
leaves.
that only
leaves
gives
them
us 2 weeks to get
Okay, so then
everything
it's going to be
together.
next week.
Next week.
Okay.
Should I give you some?
Unless you want to do it tomorrow.
Nope.
Okay. So this will be September 28th. Okay.
We'll have to have it on the agenda. It's filling up already.
And are we looking that to be part of the regular meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just do it as a regular meeting. I mean, everyone's just going to be put on notice. It's going to be on our next agenda as far as budgetary, and they're going to bring their thoughts to the meeting. And
Do you want me to have any larger projects that we know are on our horizon as well? Or are you looking
might
just
wanna go
this to be
through
yours?
some of the educational, what larger projects that you had planned to put in the budget just as far as discussion.
Yep,
Say, where do these fall?
yep, okay. I'm looking, we've got some curricular pieces that are coming
Right. And
coming
we
due.
may
Okay.
have, well, depending on what we have.
The other thing that I want to see is, what is our priority in curriculum? And, potentially, are there any recommended cuts that you guys are going to bring towards the board so we can kind of balance those in our parameters?
I
Last
would say recommended cuts probably other than,
last year you brought forward some recommended layoffs of some teachers that the board declined to do, and my understanding was we may have additional recommendations next year. So
Right.
next year is here,
it is, and I would ask that those would be in non-public to start with.
and I'm fine with that.
And I think another scenario is that you say, based upon what we put out for electronic educational tools, Chromebooks and so forth, and what we're going to be doing, we may have less in a paper
Right,
book as far as budget. So there might be a reduction there or a shift based upon
Away from paper textbooks and toward
or
electronic,
what
yes.
we're having to do this year, and to say, might be a short term, or it happens this one year, or it could be a trend. So there may be a cut in some things that would be usual and customary, that might be a one-year thing, but it could be a trend based upon us saying, this is working better to stay this way, or we want to migrate back to some of more of these more conventional materials, just, or whatever it is. Or it could be restructuring of some of our classes based upon what we're going through this year.
I think the other thing we have to look at with the technology investments we've made is, what is the shelf life of those devices? And do we start planning now in a capital reserve fund and tuck a
Yes, we do.
little bit of money away per year? And that needs to be part of our budget process or discussion this year.
Okay, anything else for new business?
I have a couple things.
Go ahead.
One, I'd like to see a protocol for public participation put into place to avoid mid-discussion interruptions. I hope it would include, one, an announcement of participants' name and street to verify their residence. Two, that we don't have mid-discussion interruptions. If the chair wants public participation, you can ask, and no keyed-in questions. That participants must participate via voice to verify identity and prevent trolling. And second thing is, I remember having a discussion about adding the Google Meets messages to the minutes. Was that put into place?
I have those transcripts. They have not been forwarded to our secretary, but I will get those to you. And those will be placed up with the minutes when they're posted.
Yeah, Josh, I don't have any issue with what you're saying about, because really, a lot of that is taken from a public participation now, where a person announces who they are, with the street that they live on. That's usually what's usual and customary when somebody's here. And I will certainly try to proceed that way, especially with the mid-discussion interruptions. I think that is, something that I've been allowing, but it is disruptive, and I can probably at each segment kind of give an opportunity for public input on each topic, so we can pick that up. That doesn't end up being a mid-discussion interruption. And also, because right now, the way I've been conducting it, it's been, I've been allowing it, but sometimes that's the only way they've been able to alert us, is because I haven't been asking for it on each topic. So I certainly take those concerns, and I can try to perform accordingly when I run the meeting. As far as keyed-in questions, I guess I would agree with that also. If somebody's online, they should be able to pipe in and speak to us.
It does make it part of the record, though,
Right.
because they're keyed in, so.
But
The other issue, too, is, and hope it's our vision, is, our Google Meets can be a meeting with the board. And once we have a phone line in here, we can invite people to talk in. We broadcast simultaneously on YouTube, so any of the staff can monitor YouTube, and if we need, Blake or Matt or somebody to call in, we can say, hey, can you call in on the telephone? We can put them on speaker, and we're communicating at the meeting. The platform we're using now, having been remote, I don't like it. And I've heard, I've heard people say, well, gee, I tried to call in and ask a question at the meeting, I couldn't get in. If that's the case, we can't be doing remote meetings.
right. I've made this comment before. I think our quality of meeting, going out to people who are watching, there's room for improvement in several areas. But that's all I need to say. Anything else for new business? Not hearing any. Our next meeting is September 28th. I'll open it up for any final public participation, if there is any, before we go into non-public. And apparently somebody's got a few things for me to sign.
Just 100 contracts.
Told you you had a stack.
Just one signature?
See, I only had one.
One on each.
Not hearing any participation, I'll make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A 32J.
Okay, I know we have, I'd like to do a little bit more debrief with some of the other
Wanna go student
safety
safety?
concerns too.
So you wanna go
And I would
under
like
what?
Mr. Costongway to join us for that.
Okay, so you want to go in under safety,
Under safety, yes.
which would be what letter?
Safety and security.
Safety and security.
I'll find the letter. We're gonna have to set up a new meeting and invite Matt in.
Yeah, and that's, Jen will do that.
So, is there a second? All those in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.